Hey guys, I decided this cube is my new main 3x3. Now you might be thinking this is a bit too big to be my main 3x3, but it actually fits my hands even better. Look, it's almost the same size. This has made me realize that normal cubes actually don't fit my hands, they don't even fit my palm. I have a box of important cubes, but I have to find my main before practicing, and this is much easier to find, which means more practice time. Which of course means more improvement. And it feels really great not to turn, but to get PBs, because I can just keep breaking PBs with this. Also, doing look ahead on this cube is so easy, I never have to pause. But there is one problem I need to fix before this cube can be competition ready, and that is the turning is a little messed up. Do you hear that? If we look at the pieces, so if you move from white to green here, there's actually a bump up. And what makes this worse is the corner pieces have the same problem. On this piece, you can get caught right here, and when you try to run the pieces against each other, they will get caught and won't move. The problem actually is barely there at all, and if you look at the size of the pieces, they are actually thick enough that I can just sand these off with sandpaper and it will be fine. And this is actually nothing new to me. I used to do this to my cubes 10 years ago. A lot of you may remember the Diane Zanchi. This was the best cube a long time ago, but it wasn't good enough by cubers standards, and we modded it with sandpaper to make it turn better. So today I'm going back to my roots and modding this cube as well. Wait, this isn't sandpaper, this is glitter. Why do I have, I spent half an hour looking for this. Okay, here is the actual sandpaper. Let's get to work. Oh, before I start, better safe than sorry, this is gonna produce a lot of plastic dust, so I'm gonna get my mask and goggles on. Okay, now I'm ready. The green side is a bit higher, so I'll go until I don't feel that anymore. Whoa, it works. It's like really smooth now, but it's also super scratched. Going across is pretty smooth now, but it is super scratched up. I have some finer sandpaper if I want to fix this at the end, but honestly, I don't really care. This should be fine. I'm just gonna move on to the other side and all the other pieces. All right, the deed has been done. I've sanded down the pieces and let's see. Oh, it makes a little bit of a squeaky noise just because like I left all the scratches on, so that's probably what's making the noise, but the orange side was a problem before. Let's see it. Oh yeah. Oh, the problem's gone. Yes. I can still feel it a little bit sometimes, but I think this is good enough. I don't need it to be absolutely perfect. I just don't want it catching when I'm turning, which is definitely not happening anymore, but the sound is really funny. Oh yeah, and this cube would not be my main without a J-Perm logo. Why am I doing this? That's just lovely. Unfortunately, I will not be using this cube in competition because of the rules. Wait, there's got to be a rule against this, right? Come on. Come on. Come on, please. Oh, okay, I think I have an idea. Yes, okay, there's a rule against this. That's why I can't use this in a competition. So I decided I will instead simulate a competition with all of the 3x3 events, and I won't be doing multi-blind because I only have one cube. So I started with a 3x3 average of 5, and let me tell you, I probably should have practiced more before this because I was clearly getting better with each solve. This cube turns much better than when I first got it, of course, because I sanded it down. Using sandpaper on the pieces actually made a huge difference. I'm definitely more confident turning, and it really doesn't catch ever. My PB going into this was actually 41 seconds, so I shattered my PB on every single solve. It was also really interesting learning the details in how I should be turning. So obviously I'm not really using finger tricks, but the U-layer turns can kind of be done with your fingers depending on the situation. And I learned that when you turn the right and left layers, it's actually easier to turn the cube towards you rather than away from you. For example, R prime is much easier than R, and this is really important when you do R2 or L2 because you can choose the direction. There are of course other little details in the turning which I probably grasped intuitively, but it's just kind of too much to think about all these finger tricks at once, and I think these times I'm getting could be much better if I was really used to the move optimal algorithms in F2L, OLL, and PLL, but I'm definitely wasting moves by using the algorithms I normally use on a 3x3. The times times I ended up getting were 37, 34, 29, 30, and 36. So a 33.89 average. I'm sure I could get sub 30, but I am pretty happy with this. Next was one-handed, and this was obviously going to be the hardest one. I actually went in without even learning how to turn first, which was a huge mistake. My first solve ended up being 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Actually, now that I think about it, that's not even too far from my first one-handed solve ever on a normal 3x3 cube. Anyway, turning one-handed is just terrible. I couldn't really figure out how to do it. I realized at some point that turning off of the table could actually help because the table doesn't get in the way of the layer I'm trying to turn. It didn't work out so well, and I also noticed it was kind of difficult to reorient the cube, so a lot of the time I would just turn the cube in whatever orientation it already was in. For example, I did a T-perm from the side because it was too hard to turn the cube over. My hands were getting very tired, but I did find another cool trick, which is if you have the last turn, don't do it because you just get a +2 second penalty, and this is faster than doing the last turn a lot of the time. So here was my final average. I didn't discover about the +2 until the second solve, and I only did 4 solves because my arm was starting to cramp at the end, and I decided since you take away the best and worst solves in an official average, you don't need to do the last solve. That was probably the smart thing to do. And then there was blindfolded, and I realized that I had to take off the logo because you're not allowed to have a logo in a competition for blindfolded solving. The first solve actually had some easy algorithms, but I messed up somewhere, and without muscle memory, this is really hard. So I know sometimes when people do 3x3 slowly, it's hard to remember algorithms because you don't have the muscle memory, but doing it blindfolded is even harder because when you solve 3x3, even though you're relying on muscle memory, there's also a visual element and you can kind of see where the pieces move. So sometimes if you're lost, you can kind of figure out what the next move is. But in blindfolded, you never get to see the cube when turning, so it's just muscle memory. And I wasn't really messing up, but I also had to think a lot for the algorithms. The first solve was the 3 minutes and 18 seconds, but it was a DNF by 3 edges, so I probably just did one algorithm wrong. Then I tried again, and the second solve actually had some of the harder algorithms, so I ended up spending a lot of time pausing in between steps and trying to think of a simpler algorithm than the one I usually use. Because blindfolded algorithms are all intuitive, you can actually just make one up on the spot, so that's what I was doing, and that's why there's so many cube rotations. For example, on a smaller cube, I would just do more moves to avoid the cube rotation because it's faster that way, but on this cube, I would just do a cube rotation plus a really simple algorithm, and that way I would not mess up. And I managed to finish the solve in 3 minutes and 31 seconds. Yeah, I'm never doing this again. Next up was fewest moves. Yeah, I'm about to spend an hour on this. Now, in case you don't know how fewest moves works, you don't do a normal cube solve, you actually just write down your solution on a piece of paper, but you get an hour and you also get the scramble, which means you can do a bunch of crazy things. Obviously, you're not allowed to just reverse the scramble, but there are a lot of advanced techniques to lower the number of moves you use. And I forgot how many turns you have to do in a fewest move solve because a lot of the time you have to re-scramble the cube, and I was trying to avoid that. I looked at the timer after the first time I scrambled it and it took 30 seconds. Does 30 seconds seem like a lot? Maybe not, but over the course of an hour, let's say you scramble the cube 20 times, that's already 10 minutes wasted. So I had to change up my strategy a bit and do a little bit more writing and a little bit less turning than usual. I did my normal amount of time management, which turns out to be wrong because I turned so much slower, so in the end, I actually came down to the very last second when I circled my solution. In the end, I got a 33 move solution, which is honestly not bad considering how hard it was to turn this. Here was the scramble and some of my work in the beginning. Do 10 moves, solve red. I didn't have time to do the actual turns. Even though you get an hour, this was super rushed. I had to write more than usual and do fewer turns than usual. And I won't do it here, but let's just make sure everything works. Here is the scramble, and I'll do the solution that I wrote down. There you go. I am not doing 2 more solves of this. This is what my WCA profile would look like if this competition counted. Anyway, that was fun. Just kidding, that was not fun. That was painful. This cube is no longer my main.